Okay, hello everybody. I'm Donna M. Ross. I'm going to explain the technology to you behind robotics, the weapon that's being used to, here's the copyright of the information I'm giving you, helpsavebeverlyhillsprincess.com. All rights are reserved, including under new generation technology laws. So this is the video that's where I'm going to explain the technology that is this weapon, this new classified weapon. The government's buying it from the high-tech industry. The United States government is buying it from the high-tech industry for billions of dollars a year. And it was my former fiance, the famous cutting-edge high-tech industrialist, Fred Kavli, of the Kavli Foundation and the Kavli Prize for Sciences. It was he who identified for me in 2007 what it is that the crazy little immature weirdo who saw me in 1999 and has been using it ever since then to do terrible things to me and to destroy my life. So in 2007, Fred Kavli, I asked him I told him what was happening. He identified for me that this weirdo, this stalker from the high-tech industry, is using this an extremely advanced new weapon called Robotics. That's the official classified military name, according to Fred Kavli, that the stalker is using to essentially slowly murder me. And the police and the FBI have said it's technically not illegal yet to attack Americans with high-tech weapons. The story is told in other videos. But in exchange for me giving you all of this information, I'm going to give you, I must beg you, no matter where you are in the world, to please call California's Governor, Jerry Brown, and Senators in California, Dianne Feinstein and Barbara Boxer, and that Congresswoman Lois Capps, all of whom have been ignoring my letters, begging them to do something to rescue me from this situation where this bizarre little freak from technology is using this billion-dollar weapon to destroy my businesses and to prevent me from working and to rob me of everything. And they've been ignoring my letters. Please clobber them verbally to demand that they now rescue me. They need to update Social Security as I asked them to include rescuing you. The entire story, or my list of requests, are in the website helpsavebeverlyhillsprincess.com and in other videos on YouTube with our channel. Our YouTube channel is helpsavebeverlyhillsprincess.com. But as you know from the other videos, from the story we tell in the website, Jerry Brown, Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer, Lois Capps, and others around the country on government payroll are responsible for all the deaths that have occurred by yet other stalkers, yet other tech industry workers with this new weapon. Because as of 2007, once Fred Kavli told me what it is that I'm being slowly murdered by, I went to the FBI and alerted them to the fact that this is now a crime wave, and they said it wasn't their job. And Lois Capps did nothing, and Jerry Brown, Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer. So no matter where you are in the world, in exchange for me giving you all of this information about the weapon, the technology, I'm begging you to please call these people on government payroll and tell them that you are going to call all of your friends and relatives in California and in the United States, and that you're going to, that you're going to make sure that they and everybody you know votes Jerry Brown, Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer, Lois Capps, and their parties out of office, and their parties throughout the United States, if they don't instantly do something to rescue me from this situation where this immature little freak has been free to rob me of everything and to throw me into the gutter. And that's why we called it helpsavebeverlyhillsprincess.com. Like all women out there, I work very hard to create a beautiful, incredible life for myself. that is described in other videos and in our website. And these people, Jerry Brown, Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer, Lois Capps, and everybody else listed on the website, have done nothing as I contacted them to rescue me from this situation where I'm being slowly murdered by this weirdo that they're paying all of our tax dollars to, while they let him slowly murder me with this new weapon of the government that they're paying him and his company $1 billion a year for. And I've literally been expected by the police and the FBI to sleep in the gutter after this weirdo has used this weapon to kidnap me away from my children and my home and to slowly murder me. So please, that's what I'm asking in exchange for giving you all this information, and that's the end of my story here. But I will not survive through the end of 2014 if you all don't make sure that you clobber Jerry Brown and Dianne Feinstein, etc., and make into doing something, into rescuing me financially, updating crime victims assistance programs. If they can find a way to pay this stalker $1 billion a year while he slowly murders me with this new weapon of the government, they can surely find a way to reimburse me for my estate, which also would have been enormous, would have been hundreds of millions of dollars. It's been stolen from me by this weirdo, by a prior weirdo. And they can find a way to update Social Security to include rescuing you to the lifestyle that you deserve if they were doing their jobs. But I won't make it if you don't make sure I'm rescued. So that's what I'm asking in return. Now, when Fred Kavli told me what you're being attacked by is the government's new, extremely advanced, high-tech weapon, whose official classified military name is Robotics. And at that time, Fred Kavli was on the Science and Technology Advisory Council. There were like 9 or 10 members of top scientists who were advising President George W. Bush, and Fred was one of them. He sat on that council where he advised the President, George W. Bush, at that time in 2007. That's how Fred was able to tell me what it is that's being used to slowly murder me. And he told me that it's what I'm being slowly murdered by is very expensive. It's $1 billion a year. And he told me that it's extremely advanced and that my chances of ever getting free of this particular stalker during my lifetime are not very good. And he told me a few other things about it that I'll be incorporating in this video. But for now, I'll just tell you that what he explained was that it's able to, that the computer that is this weapon, supercomputer, is able to beam up to satellites and then down again to the other side of the world, and it's able to instantly annihilate soldiers with these. It's basically an invisible, sort of like a laser beam, invisible. It goes right through the roof of homes, through walls, can rip the arms off of your body right like that. It's able to rearrange the electrons up in the brains of the soldiers, where their muscles are controlled by the brain. The movements of the body are controlled by the brain, and it can make the soldiers turn around and shoot their own men. It's able to rearrange the electrons up in the visual region of their brain, in the hearing region of their brain, so that they're made to have a virtual experience. So they no longer hear what's around them, but now they are made to hear the voice of God telling them, "My son, lay down your weapon." It's able to make them, make their bodies move against their wishes, etc. But it can also inflict enormous pain and pop their heart, snap their bones, just like that. It's able, anyway, and the next day when the FBI told me that they weren't going to do anything about this immature little weirdo who's slowly murdering me with this new weapon of the government spying from the high-tech industry, I had no choice but to research the weapon, thinking that maybe I could find somebody that could that could protect me from the stalker. I didn't have any other options, and and as you know from the other videos, the stalker at that point ended my careers, my beloved careers, robbed me of everything, destroyed my credit, totaled my car, and turned me into basically a snuff film. I'm like in a snuff film for him, with this being able to slowly murder me with this billion-dollar weapon. And the FBI said it's technically not illegal in the United States yet to attack Americans with high-tech weapons, so it wasn't their job to do anything about it. So now you know who to blame for all the deaths that have occurred from that point on, because my resume and Fred's are so huge. As you know from my other videos, I'm kind of a big deal achiever. So there was no excuse for the FBI not to take the ball and run with it, and to be responsible to stop crime as it progresses into high-tech weapons. So what I had to do then, while I was enduring being slowly murdered, and the stalker also communicated to me he's going to turn my face into the ugliest face in the world, and it began to cut my face very painfully, and it's never stopped. I had to sit there while I'm enduring this horrible treatment by this horrible weapon. This is what I found out about the weapon, if I can share with all of you to explain it to you. So, and this involved a few people were helping me, a couple scientists and my father until he passed away. But I didn't know anything about our country, basically. Just what all of us know from what we hear on television and what our teachers told us as we grew up. But it's much different than what we think. So this was a good experience, that I had to work on this, given my background, that I've held positions of great responsibility, even on a national scale. So it was a good experience. I had to do this. So this is what I found out about the weapon by driving hours to see the president of Caltech, calling the office of the president of MIT. These are some of the leading high-tech universities in the world, for those of you that don't know. And by calling Washington, D.C. agencies, writing to scientists, reading thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of high-tech articles, reading many, many high-tech books, science books, while I was being slowly murdered by this weapon, and while the stalker threw me into life-threatening poverty. And I, like all women, I have a beautiful life, and I was forced, when the police didn't come to my rescue, I had to live in a horrible place with black widow spiders and rats. And it was such a horrible experience. So please do clobber Jerry Brown and Dianne Feinstein and Barbara Boxer, and stay on them, and monitor my Twitters, subscribe to my Twitters, and my blogs on the website helpsavebeverlyhillsprincess.com. The Twitter is also helpsavebeverlyhillsprincess.com. The emphasis being that I don't deserve to be in any creepy little government programs. I earn $3,000 an hour and growing if I'm free to work. And these people, they need to make sure that I'm rescued. I'm put back into the lifestyle that I earned for myself until they didn't do their job to protect us hardworking business people. We pay their salaries, our taxes. They don't remember that, but please make sure that they have to, in exchange for me giving you all this information, I would be writing it, but I can't under these attacks. The attacks are calibrated to prevent me from doing my work, my beloved work. So this is what I found out by having to read all of these, do all this work into science and technology. What I found out is that, and by talking to different high-tech CEOs, one of whom is selling this weapon to the government, and as you know from my other videos, some of my clients in social contexts, some of my clients in my investment-oriented business are famous high-tech CEOs and famous CEOs in general. And so from these people, I was able to add to my knowledge about the weapon. So this is what it is. For those of you that want to know about the technology behind it in easy English words. It all started in the 1850s when scientists were fascinated, obsessed by being able to alter the behavior of humans by altering their electrical system. New Atlantis magazine reports on the history of that. See our website. And back then they found that by taking a recently dead frog, if they put a certain metal on the recently dead frog's bodies, it would make their legs jerk in duplicatable, predictable ways. And so there's always been certain people obsessed by being able to alter humans, by altering humans' behavior and controlling humans by altering their electrical system. And that was and by the late 1950s, satellites were put into space, and the supercomputers started being sold to the government for the space program. But apparently the first supercomputer was invented in the late of what is known to be in private companies, because nobody knows what's going on inside private companies. This is what I found through my research. All of us out there don't know that the high-tech industry in the science community, in private companies and in garages, has no government oversight or regulation, and it never has. So but the supercomputers that started being sold to the government in the late 1950s, 1960 for the space program. And what I learned is that our bodies are not only chemical, but they're also electrical. And so at that same time, scientists had already developed ways to alter the behavior of charging bowls wirelessly. There's see our website, Dr. Jose Delgado. Dr. Jose Delgado of Yale University you see a film on our website, helpsavebeverlyhillsprincess.com, where Dr. Jose Delgado, who grew up in Spain but became a Yale University professor of electrophysiology or something like that, he demonstrates wireless control of a charging bowl. This was in 1958, 1960 space program starting. And you can see the bowl charging across the day before, Dr. Jose Delgado had implanted an electrode up in the motor control region of the brain, of the bowl's brain. And when the bowl was recuperated, the bowl was in the bowl ring with Dr. Jose Delgado, and you can see the bowl charging towards Dr. Jose Delgado in the bowl ring. When the bowl is about 2 yards away, you can see Dr. Jose Delgado flip a switch on a little device, wireless, and you see the bowl come to a complete screeching stop, and it just stands there looking at Dr. Jose Delgado. That was the late 1950s, 1960. And also you can see in that same documentary we have on our website, Dr. Jose Delgado demonstrates wirelessly altering the emotions and the personality of living cats. And you can see Dr. Jose Delgado apparently got in trouble for this. The public was not happy. People in the public were upset. You see on our website, helpsavebeverlyhillsprincess.com, a cage with 2 cats in there, very happy, and they have the little electrodes up in their brain, and they're very happy, sweet. And then you see the hand of Dr. Jose Delgado flip a switch, and suddenly the one cat begins to ferociously, viciously attack the other one. And so that was the start of that's how this thing was invented, is that there have always been scientists who have been free of any government regulation or oversight, and no police or law enforcement retaliation, who've been obsessed, just like I'm obsessed about fashion and art and my home and dinner parties and writing international novels and helping people. There have been scientists who have been born where they have this sick obsession about wanting to alter people and animals with electricity. And as the computers became more and more powerful, it allowed them to be able to exert greater and greater degrees of control over living creatures, so that by the start of as the government acquired supercomputers for the space program, and there were 300,000 different subcontracting businesses that were involved with that space program. We found, and we have copies of all these articles that we can put into our website to prove that this is all accurate. So all of those people in there, the percentage of them that were bad eggs and that were obsessed about being able to use this computer to develop programs that could actually alter humans and animals, it was all made possible by the space program, by the budget of the space program. Okay, so this is what I found. In essence, it's a nanotechnology supercomputer weapon. Nanotechnology supercomputer weapon, robotics. And what is nanotechnology, you might ask? Nanotechnology is supercomputers that break matter, separate matter into its component parts. And when matter is broken down into its component particles, component parts, it behaves very, very differently than when it's left as Mother Nature intended. But these people, there are mad scientists out there, and very unethical. For example, Dr. Jose Delgado apparently wrote 15 books and 300 scientific articles on the topic of being able to control humans by altering their brain, by controlling their brain. And scientists, ethical scientists, were concerned about his morality. We read in the New Atlantis magazine article about this. And all of these articles were in the process of uploading to the website that we have, helpsavebeverlyhillsprincess.com. They're 6 feet thick, all the scientific and military articles that I had to read while being slowly murdered by this billion-dollar weapon of the government. And my life became that of a murder victim instead of having a balanced, normal life. I mean, I no longer haven't had lunches out. I haven't nothing. I've done nothing but research this and struggle to survive the attack. So, but there are files 6 feet thick now that we have, with all these scientific articles and the science books and the different documentaries that we found that we're going to be uploading, that we are in the process of uploading to the website, so you too can see for yourself that this is accurate. But I'm giving you it quickly, so I'm going to make this really short, this particular video. I've given you the history, and that it was our space program in the United States that had no government oversight of how these different companies and people working their garages were using or misusing whatever they wanted to come up with. I also found out through my research that that there's never been any real monitoring, government monitoring of how high-tech people, workers, and companies and businesses use or misuse their satellite time. Their satellite time. We all assume that those satellites up there are like Dad, some heroic, wonderful thing, right, above our country. Wrong. That's what allowed this weapon to be invented, and this way of murdering us by satellite is because there has never been, in typical government fashion, it's a mess in there. There's no dad in the government, I found out. by going in and out of all these senator offices and Washington, D.C. agencies. You heard me say in another video, we're just a high school class running this country. And not even that. There are a lot of people in there that if you went to certain really great high schools, you'd be appalled at what's in there, and there's no dad in there. It's just a high school class running the country, and it's a mess, and people in there don't care. They've all been informed about this crime wave, and they're not smart enough to even do anything about it for their own sake and for that of their family. So it's up to all of us. We have to get smart now, and we have to grow up and realize that we can't go on this way paying people to do jobs and then not have cameras on them to make sure that we know what they're doing or not doing all day long while we're paying them and working hard to generate money to pay them to do their job, and they don't do their job, and then we end up with this mess that we have right now where there's only lip service paid to how high-tech companies and high-tech workers use or misuse their satellite time, which for women out there and for any caring men, and a lot of men are being attacked, that means from the very beginning of satellites, the space program, that these workers, any crazy ones in these electronics businesses that wanted to, could be peeking into our houses. But they invented ways to be able to, with this software, they can actually look through our clothing, and then actually be able to see our body parts up close. Girls are being grossed out, but that's the history of this. But the history is wrapped in with the technology. This is what I had to learn. And some of you know that I was, one of my majors in college was business, and they said I was the smartest female in the entire business department. And the other one was in a field of science and technology that's related to agriculture, that is heavy industry. And that I was the president of all the colleges in the country, mostly males. And in Canada, that would be Cornell, University of Michigan, University of Davis, UC Davis, University of California at Davis, University of Hawaii, University of Alaska, on and on and on and on. But my life is being destroyed by the freedom of creeps, the creepy people in electronics, the crazies, to be able to use this technology on me. It has destroyed my life, and I will not live through this year if you all don't make sure that Jerry Brown is forced to rescue me and send me incredible, return my estate to me, and Dianne Feinstein, everybody else in government payroll. Anyway, so here, this is what I had to learn, everybody, once I had to get back into science and technology instead of writing my international novels and running my investment-oriented business and creating incredibly romantic period films, like for my and things like that. I had to do this, and I had to nearly starve to death because I couldn't work under the attacks. But this is our brain. This is how they can do what they can do to humans. This is flipped because of the camera. It's flipped for you, but on the website you can see it. On our website you can see it flipped correctly, but it doesn't really matter. I'll explain it to you. This is how they can exert complete control over the human and over their own bodies too. This is our brain. This is the front of our brain. Here's our neck, spinal column, the back of our brain. Well, it turns out, everybody, that our brains have very specific functional regions. This is a map of our brain and its functional regions. Our brain is our computer. We all have heard that. But did you know, I didn't know this, that there are very specific parts of our brain that control the different functions of our body. And that's what we have going on here, are certain people in technology that were sick about being able to change the movements of humans or change their emotions. That's what they were using their supercomputer processing and their code writing, was to come up with ways to be able to do this to humans, and specifically girls and children at first. And now it's a huge crime wave affecting men and school children and entire towns. So this is what it started out with. This is the front of the brain. It's called the frontal lobe. That's where I'll go back to that in a second. This is the motor cortex. This is where the brain's electrons fire and chemicals flow. When you decide you want to walk out the door, that's the part of the brain that begins to fire, and it sends the impulses down to your legs, and all kinds of chemical and biological processes occur. And that's the part of the brain that the supercomputer robotics is able to alter the electrons and other things up in this part of your brain, so that your hands, this is the part of your brain that controls your eyes opening, eyelids, eye movements, fingers, hand movements, toes, walking up the door, picking up your arm, how you move your arm, you want to move your arm, everything that we decide we want to do, or that instinctively we realize we need to do right away, that's the part of the brain where that controls, that fires. We think the front of our brain, the frontal lobe is involved. It's right next to it. The front of our brain is what is called the frontal lobe. That's where your thought and consciousness is. Just being conscious that you're here. It's here. The behavior control, personality, intellect, problem solving, creativity, logic, imagination, executive functions, producing speech, figuring things out, reasoning, memory, learning, anticipation, concentration, organizing. That's all here in the front, right next to the motor control region. And perception is right here. But thought and consciousness and the intellect, word production, judgment, can you believe it's all here? And so the supercomputer weapon called Robotics, the classified official military name is Robotics, is able to override our brain, our own computer. It is much more. It's with the power of a 50-ton Mack truck, and it can actually alter the electrons in these regions of the brain to cause your body to move and say and do things and perceive things and think or not think completely differently than you would if you were not targeted. So that's the motor control region of your brain. And this is the speech production and the personality and behavior control. Can you believe that? That they were fascinated by it, and I can explain more about the history. But you need to know everything else that's up in the brain. This is what's called the sensory cortex. That's the different senses. When we see something, smell something, taste, touch, the sense of pain, pressure, hearing is right next to that, right down below that. Pain, pressure, taste, smell, touch. What's that other one there? In all regions of the body it's all registered here. And this is our computer that registers all that. And right next to it is the parietal lobe, which is speech, understanding, perception. That's a big one. Can you believe that a computer can alter your perceptions? And evaluate weight, texture, temperature for object recognition. Right underneath that is the occipital lobe. This is your vision, image recognition, image perception, comprehension, visually processing what you have seen is here in the visual, in the occipital lobe. Visual memory, visual association, face recognition, that's here. So here's your body, control of your body movements, and then you're going into the senses, hearing, taste, touch, smell, recognizing, reading, memory for speech and reading, remembering words. Then you go on down here to your cerebellum, which is your The unconscious functions of our body are controlled here. The unconscious functions such as movement and balance and posture. That's right above the back of our neck, top of the back of our neck. Over here is the medulla oblongata, and this is where our brain, our computer, controls the automatic activities of our body. For example, swallowing, digestion, vomiting, breathing, heart activity, blood pressure, thirst, hunger. Can you believe that a supercomputer can alter these things without you having any choice over it, without you feeling it coming? That's what we have. We have mad scientists out there. I've had to meet more than my share, thanks to police and FBI and people on government payroll not doing their jobs that we pay them to do. Okay, then you go into this region, which is the temporal lobe, going back towards the front, and that's your understanding things, reward, behavior association, memory. Memory is underneath all of this. Here's your writing, right in the middle, and then your pleasure of eating is right here in the middle. And then up here also we have the pituitary gland that produces, stores, and releases hormones that control and regulate every body function. Okay, so now you're beginning to understand that we have a computer up there, and we have a computer industry, and we have a lot of people who are born with this with a sick obsession about being able to write code that produces bizarre, creepy, weird things. And we have we all know about hackers, and so now we have, just like we have people hacking into our computers and robbing our money, or spying on us for the little webcams on our cameras. For those of you that haven't heard about it, that's another scandal that's been going on for a few years, that there's no government regulation of the high-tech industry workers, and it's ugly in there. You know, the consumer showrooms could be attractive, but if you have any friends or clients work in the computer industry, you've been in their offices, it's a mess. There are a wide variety of people working in there. Besides the good people, there are a lot of really creepy people. And to think that they've been free to invent whatever they want to. And this is what some of them came up with. People like Dr. Jose Delgado was every moment of his life was spent on finding ways to alter the behavior of humans with electronics, electricity, wireless, and he was quoted as saying that man has no right to control his own brain, that is a very liberal concept, that man has no right to control his own brain. Dr. Jose Delgado. Okay, so now that we know what's in our brain, everybody, and we have hackers out there that are using this weapon, it's an invention that it's a new fetish. It's a new snuff film, because not only is the supercomputer beaming by satellites, that's the information I have so far, is that it's by satellites, and it's able to, and it beams into houses, scans through houses, and the computer can read your emotions without you even knowing it. It can read your memory banks. Your memory banks are all underneath here. It can read your memory banks. 60 Minutes, I found with my helpers in 2008, you can see this on our website, Leslie Stahl from 60 Minutes interviewed the college professors who admit to having thought control software. And she reported that 2 years earlier, in the year 2006, the country of India had convicted a woman after reading her memory banks with software and finding out that indeed she had been involved with poisoning her fiance 2 years earlier. So Leslie Stahl reported that in 2008 on 60 Minutes. and that India had convicted a woman after reading her brain memory banks with software and finding out that she indeed had poisoned her fiance. So she was convicted. And Leslie Stahl reported some other things about it. We also found that History Channel has a 4 or 5 part series titled Formerly Thought to Be Impossible, Mind Control. It's an excellent, very academic coverage of the software that can alter the functioning of your own computer. And I think the word mind control is a little bit off-putting. It's a little bit kind of more, it's not really appropriate when you understand that what it is that it's really altering the functioning of humans' brains. Altering the functional regions of humans' brains is what the software does. But still, it's a great documentary to watch, and we're putting it onto our website. You can see it on YouTube, and it covers the history of all the different people that have been obsessed, the different scientists who have been obsessed, and what they've come up with over the last 100 and some years to be able to actually alter the functioning of our computer. Okay, so now what else do they get out of it? Their brain. This is why they invented this weapon, robotics. The other name for it I found through my research is a virtual relationship. It's the very same technology. That's actually how robotics came into existence, is that a virtual relationship is really what is how this whole thing started, is that the space program, the supercomputers, and the lack of any effective government, there's no one in government keeping track of who's beaming where with their satellite time. Every company apparently has reported their usage, that they're using such and such a satellite, and the government personnel, they know different companies have this and that, but there's no one in government there to watch the flow of electrons and where is the flow of electrons going that's being beamed down from the satellite. The fact is that from the very beginning of satellites, the companies and the businesses and the workers, the ones that were sick, and they call them lab rats in technology, were inventing ways and writing codes into their supercomputers that allowed them to beam into houses, to have the computer scan through houses to find children or women that this guy found to be his particular fetish, and then to be able to look through their clothing. And the computer would translate back to his brain massive amounts of information about our bodies and our body parts. And it would rearrange the electrons in the smell region of his brain, in the visual region of his brain, the taste region of his brain, the touch region of his brain, the hearing region of his brain, so that he could literally see and smell and touch our bodies through our clothing by satellite. It's the new stalker and the new pervert and the new voyeur. And then to be able to alter the electrons in the motor control region of our brains to make our hands move in ways that turned them on, or to make little children walk out of their house against their parents' wishes when the parents weren't even aware of it, or to make women walk out of their house, to get in the car of a waiting kidnapper, and to be able to exert control over the human at the same time that he can be watching. It's the new stalker and the new pervert, and according to the American Psychiatric Association, a stalker and a voyeur is turned on and feels powerful, that he's able to be spying on you and seeing you without you being aware of it. So if you're like me, mothers and girls, you can now look at the photographs of the space program engineering room with a much more educated eye. You can look at the faces in there of these. You can look on the internet, just search NASA control room, you can see a room filled with all these males. Back then it was all males, and they all had that pretty much short haircut, black glasses, white shirt, black tie, black pants. And so this is the dark side of the space program, is that a certain number of them, a percentage, were sick, and they were, you can look now at their faces, and it's no longer a blur. And we know that was a great accomplishment, going to the moon, and it's only been perceived heroically, but now we know that it gave rise to this horrible, horrible, horrible new crime. And now you can look at the faces of those engineers, mothers and girls, and you can start to look at their faces now, and just, you can now start to think, does this guy have a turn on by being able to have his little computer, his beloved computer, creating programs for it so it could actually allow him to look into our houses and through our clothing, and to be able to make girls walk out of their houses to be his kidnap victim or his murder victim. Because when you're beamed with this computer, as famous scientists have said, it's with the force of a 50-ton Mack truck. You cannot feel it coming. You can't prevent it. There's nothing you can do about it. You cannot hide behind it. So look at their faces now, and you can see that a lot of those faces in there are scary. They're really, really scary looking people in there. Now that you know that they have no government oversight, no law enforcement, no FBI, nobody at all paying attention, and it would very often be the top guy. So he's able to actually be targeting a lot of people all at once. Have this computer, they're obsessed about computers, and they would have the computer, the supercomputer, out scanning through homes and schools and cars to find children and girls and males that they were interested in, and then they developed ways to be able to have the computer have complete control over every subatomic particle in our bodies simultaneously, all at once, and to be able to alter it to make bizarre things happen to us, like suddenly beam this part of our body of our computer so that our body begins to vomit in ways that are unnatural, very geeky things, make our bodies begin to erupt. They invented ways to be able to make your body have literally orgasms. That was one of the first things that they came up with, was be able to be seeing into our houses and to be able to look in through the clothing of children and to be able to make their little bodies have an orgasm. And the computer would translate back to his brain all the information about that child's body or that woman's body, that girl's body, so that his hands, he could have a virtual reality experience of actually being with her, exactly as if he were with her, and that he's actually having her body, that he's in control of her body is the big turn on, and that he's actually has this orgasm going on that could be made to last for a year, and it could be horrible. It could be a bad experience because the computer can alter the emotions of the human target so that it's a bad experience, and then the computer can translate back to the stalker how bad it feels for the little victim, so that because he's stalking you, he's already a bad guy, he's already a sadist, so he wants to know how bad you feel while his beloved computer is doing this to you, and or doing this to the child. And they can literally, it's so real, it's so perfected, and it has been ever since the beginning of the space program, but with just probably a few companies back then, but now it's a huge, huge, huge crime wave. But anyway, where was I going with this? If I go off track, it's because of the sabotage of myself by this particular little freak that's been stalking me. The computer knows by beaming me when he drove by me in 1999 that my accomplishments were really significant, that I've been a national leader in my professions and the people I've known in my life, and some huge things, and so it apparently is jealous of me, and has had the computer block me from being able to access my own abilities. So please just bear with me if I'm a little bit off track sometimes. It's not me, it's just the nature of the sabotage of myself. But this is why, so now you're beginning to understand the technology. It's called molecular electronics, which is the software control of living molecules for people out there. And for people that aren't technical, you know what it's like when you're shocked. Your body just jerks away from it. This is what they've perfected. And if you're like me, it will help to know about that there are people. A couple things I learned is that there are people that are extremely turned on by technology. It's kind of like a twist. They're born with a twisted brain, that they're really turned on by technology. And the proof of that was in Investigation Discovery Channel. We found a documentary titled Fembots, 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 like female robots, only fembots. And that they were explaining that there are 2 million men in the United States that admit to being members of this organization, sort of a club called Fembots, where they admit to being turned on when they have complete control over the female of their choice. Complete control. And that they go to great effort and expense to be able to obtain complete control over the female that they're interested in. And they interviewed, and some of these were high-tech males that were in there, and some of them looked scary, dark, something dark and not right, ominous. There was one young man that was interviewed with his girlfriend. She was cooperating. He was a high-tech guy, computer guy. They were dressed nicely. She said she was cooperating. She had allowed herself to be hypnotized for him, other things like that. But this is what we're dealing with, everybody. This is why they're doing what they're doing, the ones that are doing this to humans, where they're murdering people with this new invention, this new weapon. Here is this young man. This is where you can actually begin to understand that people really are turned on by technology. It's a new fetish. So here, that young man who was so obsessed about being able to control his girlfriend, that was his sexual turn-on. At the end of the interview with him, he was sitting at his computer, his desktop computer. He had a photograph of his girlfriend's face on the computer monitor, and he had been putting high-tech symbols all over the photograph of his girlfriend's face on the computer monitor, all over her face. You can see it on the documentary, Fembots. And so as he was leaning forward doing that, putting high-tech symbols on the photograph of his girlfriend's face in this Investigation Discovery documentary. And then the interviewer says to him, "So, you find this very arousing, you say, and to be putting high-tech symbols on the photograph of your girlfriend's face on this computer monitor?" And the young guy is like this, "Oh, you have no idea how arousing this is." And this is what we have, everybody. We have a new fetish, and it's out of control. And you can blame the FBI, the police, and everyone that we list on our website for all the murders that have occurred since 2007, when I went in asking them to do something to protect me from this really crazy guy, immature little freak that's been using this weapon to destroy my life since he first saw me in 1999. And because with my background, my resume, and the fact that it was Fred Kavli, who had just the day before, had told me what it is that's being used to slowly murder me, that was the moment that the FBI should have picked up the ball and run with it to do something about the fact that this new weapon of the government is buying from the high-tech industry, is being used to murder the populace and to destroy their businesses and to kidnap people. I informed them, I'm being murdered by this person. He's kidnapped me away from my office, away from my home, won't let me work, my children, away from my children. I can't, and the things he's doing to my body. And Lois Capps, the congresswoman, where my investment-oriented business was located, much of my life was down in the Beverly Hills area and in Europe. But one of my businesses was located in the district where Lois Capps, Congresswoman Lois Capps' office was, and you can blame her, because I went to her next to say the police and FBI are saying it's not their job yet. And she did absolutely nothing. And she is to blame. These people are to blame for the mass shootings that have been occurring ever since then, because that are listed in other videos. This video is just for the technology. So, and the proof. Now, other proof to help you to understand this, for people in science out there, I've been told that this involves 3 trillion terahertz per second. This is what I've been told. I don't know if that's accurate or not. Sometimes, I have to double check things myself and make sure that that what I hear is completely accurate. You can check on that. But I will tell everybody that to help you understand how real this is, it's a virtual relationship. It's completely indistinguishable from a real relationship, which is when you're beamed by somebody with this. Ray Kurzweil, one of the top futurists and computer scientists in the world, a very famous man, has given a number of speeches about virtual relationships. We found one, he gave the keynote speech in 2004 to the Army Sciences Conference Board, United States Army Sciences Conference Board. And the speech was titled, "Virtual Relationships are now a perfected and extremely viable weapon of war." That was in 2004. Ray Kurzweil, keynote speech to the United States Army Sciences Conference Board. "Virtual relationships are now a perfected and extremely viable weapon of war." In 2008, on the stage at Stanford University, at their annual Singularity Conference in 2008, Ray Kurzweil, for 1.5 hours, was on the stage at Stanford University with a female PhD explaining that virtual relationships are completely indistinguishable from a real relationship. That is how perfected this technology is. The person beaming you, or beaming children, committing mass shootings, beaming mothers who love their children, beaming young girls, kidnapping girls, beaming into houses, raping girls, beaming into houses, murdering celebrities, young men, honor students, entire families, is able to exactly smell, see, taste, touch, exactly as if he's right there with you. And he can have the bodies and the homes of a lot of other people around the country all with him at the same time. That is how perfected this technology is. His brain, the computer, is able to rearrange the electrons in his different regions of his brain so that it's exactly as if he's with you, while he has the computer have complete control over what your hands do, what your mouth says, how your body moves. It is complete control of the living human and animals by supercomputers. And you can call it virtual reality, you can call it the God weapon is a nickname for it, the voice to skull weapon is another name for it. But according to my former fiance, the very famous Fred Kavli of the Kavli Institutes and the Kavli Foundation and the Kavli Science, the prize, you can look this up on the internet, the official classified military name, it's our nation's #1 unbeatable weapon. The United States has it. It's an unbeatable #1 classified weapon called robotics. Robotics. And what I learned through my research into it is that we have a 50% chance of making it through this era, that it is the most dangerous weapon ever invented in the history of mankind. According to world famous scientists Bill Joy and Sir Martin Rees, who were in 1997 to the year 2001, they made a huge effort to alert the entire world to the fact that the electronics industry workers, the high-tech industry workers, the computer industry workers, now pose the most severe threat to the lives, the safety, and the freedom of the rest of the populace, bar none, that there's no greater threat to our lives and our freedom and our safety than computer industry workers, electronics industry workers, the quote-unquote defense industry workers, where they have this, the ones that have, that there's no greater threat to our lives, and that because of these incredibly dangerous new weapons called electronic weapons. Classified official military name is robotics, that they are inventing and producing. Now, Bill Joy was co-founder of Sun Microsystems, one of the world's huge cutting-edge high-tech corporations, and Sir Martin Rees was Great Britain's Astronomer Royal. And these are these are big-time scientists in the world, and they very publicly warned the United States government and the world, starting in 1997 until about 2001, about how dangerous this weapon is, saying that Bill Joyce said it is so dangerous it should never have been allowed to have been invented. It should never have been allowed to have been invented. And that these are the huge threats to our lives now. Robotics, artificial intelligence, and nanotechnology. And robotics is so dangerous. This weapon is so dangerous, it should never have been allowed to have been invented. And that government must now begin to oversee and regulate the high-tech industry. Clinton was in office then as president. He did nothing. He disbanded the Technology Oversight Committee. George Bush didn't use it. He probably used it in a bad way. I mean, he didn't do anything about it in the crime wave, and the current person in office has done nothing about it. So everybody, are you beginning to get the picture? Supercomputers are able to, just like when you're beamed by electricity, it makes your hand jerk away. They have been, since before supercomputers, there have been scientists frantically working on trying to find ways to be able to control humans. They're just obsessed by being able to have complete control over us. They're sick, and it became possible on a mass scale, starting when the supercomputers were acquired by the government for the space program. And apparently there were ethical scientists back then that were warning the government that they were buying way too many supercomputers for the space to get to the moon and back. And it's because of our system, how it's about paying people off, and then you can get your contracts in exchange. And apparently scientists were warning the government people back then that you're acquiring way too many supercomputers for, compared to what's needed. This is extremely dangerous. Terrible evil could be done with them. And sure enough, these people, a certain percentage of them, were developing these ways to be able to beam into our houses and to have the computer translate back to their brain, inventing ways to be able to beam our brain and make the hand jerk. And then they perfected it so pretty soon and now it's like complete control over our hands and our legs, and it can make you jump around, can make you pick up a rope and put around your neck and tie yourself, can make you start to scream and shout at people that you love. And the guy, he can alter the electrons in his brain so that he can have the experience that an artificially generated experience, that he's actually sharing your body with you. It's your body, but it's him, it's his life in your body. And he thinks it's really funny. And he can actually, there's so much more. I'll tell you another video. I just want to keep it to just the technology in this video. And let me look at my notes and see what else I should tell you about. The high-tech industry has had artificially generated personalities ever since the early 1970s, that they use mostly for training purposes, where you would sit down at the computer and it would converse with you, and it was completely indistinguishable from a real personality. They use it mostly for training purposes, but that's incorporated in this weapon, whether you call it a virtual relationship or robotics. Okay, so this is a very astonishing, it's a very big invention, historically speaking, and I've told you, okay, we found another documentary to help you visualize electronic weapons. the military channel. In 2008, we found a documentary on the military channel in the United States, where they interviewed one of the heads of the military, United States military, where he was explaining that he's so excited that he has just finished his 21-year mission to convert our military over to electronic weapons. And he gave demonstrations of electronic weapons, sort of entry-level, unclassified versions of it. And we have this on our website, helpsavebeverlyhillsprincess.com. You can see a football field with burly soldiers at the end of it. They're happy, they're joking around, they're jostling each other. At the other end, there's an army tank, and and you can see there's a computer on top of the army tank, little computer, and quietly you see the computer wand turn around, swing around slowly, and point in the direction of the soldiers. You don't see anything coming out of the computer wand, you don't hear anything, but suddenly the soldiers begin to scream and shout in pain. They're clutching their bodies in pain. They're falling to the ground in pain. Some of them are trying to stagger off of the field to get away from the pain that they're experiencing from this computer wand attacking them with this invisible flow of electrons. And we gave this to the FBI and all of this proof in 2010. And we alerted them that this was now a huge crime wave in the United States, that children and women are being kidnapped out of their homes, children are being murdered, mothers are being kidnapped, young women, young men, honor students. And they said it's not illegal to attack Americans with high-tech weapons, and so it's not our jobs to go away. So they had all the proof. By 2010, we went back, as did the California police, their high-tech crimes division, high-tech police. Well, we don't really feel like doing anything about this. We're not really interested in doing this. All the other people on government payroll, they're not doing their jobs, everybody. So let's grow up and realize we have to put cameras on all of our people to make sure that they're doing their jobs. Okay, some more proof. There's a billboard in Soho in New York City we read about a couple months ago that is, I believe, an AT&T billboard. And the pedestrians that walk up and down the streets of Soho, and for those of you that don't know New York City, Soho is a really sort of expensive real estate, very artistic, lots of incredible art galleries, world-famous art galleries, restaurants, everything. It's very creative, very, very, very high-end, beautiful part of New York City. Very, very, very interesting and progressive and artistic. So, very happening, beautiful. And so people are reporting that as they walk up and down the streets, a certain street in Soho, that the billboard, the AT&T billboard that is up there is beaming, causing their brain to hear the advertising messages inside their brain. And there are other things like that that you'll start to see. Now that you know about this technology, what you all need to know is that if somebody decides to latch this onto you, there's no one in government is going to come to your rescue, because they don't care, and they're not smart enough to realize that a lot of their members are being murdered too. I mean, we have to all find the smart people in the country, in the world, and start to clobber the situation, start to do something about this crime wave. So what I also found is that each of our bodies is completely different. We're all like snowflakes. There's not one body that's exactly like anybody else's body. Scientists and doctors will tell you this. And that is reducible to math. So this supercomputer weapon, robotics, whether you call it robotics, the God weapon, or virtual relationship, is able to find your body out of everybody else's in the world, in the country, and it can find you and beam you, and it can stay latched onto you for the rest of your life. It can kill you just like that, but it can actually be made to latch onto you and to a lot of people all at once in different ways, because there are different artificial personalities in these supercomputers. And it can, there's nothing that can block it. You can't get away from it. It will follow you everywhere. It's by satellite. And the person that's targeting you could forget. I'm not going to go into any more information, but just so you understand the seriousness of this and how you can be who to blame is the FBI and the police. Jerry Brown in California, Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer. That's Governor Jerry Brown, Senator Dianne Feinstein, Senator Barbara Boxer, Congresswoman Lois Capps, and the different Washington, D.C. agencies and senators all around the United States. You can look at our website, the other videos. I'll explain the full story so all of you can really understand the thinking people out there, the people with common sense. What we found by working on this project is that there's no dad in there. There's no dad in Washington. There's no dad in government. We are a high school class running the country. And these people in there are scamming us. They're taking their paychecks and they're not doing their work. You know, the people that are in these positions that we're mentioning, the ones of the highest responsibility, they're not doing their jobs, and you can blame them for every death that has occurred and for the fiasco that's been, my life has been destroyed by a number of males using this on me, which I'll tell in another video. For my friends out there, I've been repeatedly destroyed by males with this. In college, somebody was using this on me, probably a group of people, and then when I was married, somebody from 1985 to 1999, somebody was involved with me in this way. It is a virtual relationship. It is exactly as if they're involved with you. It's a new voyeur and a new stalker, and they can have the computer. They can actually be communicating with you in a little conversation, depending on their personality. So you can blame these people in government for this huge crime wave. And so for thinking people out there, I think this is a wake-up call that we can now start to say, this is what's going wrong with our country, that these people that we're paying to do these jobs of responsibility are like any other employee. They need to have our supervision. We need to have cameras in there so we know when they're not doing their jobs, because too many people have been murdered in just this crime wave alone since 2007. But anyway, the other proof that we found, or the other thing that might help you all, is that we found that in 2002, a Dr. Carol Small, she was a psychiatrist who knew Great Britain's Sir Martin Rees. Sir Martin Rees, one of the most influential scientists in the world. He told Carol Small about this weapon. Remember, he was already warning the governments about it, starting in 1997 to 2001. So Dr. Carol Small, in the year 2002, began to frantically trying to inform her profession, her psychologists, her fellow psychologists and psychiatrists around the world. She frantically began to try to alert them to this new weapon, this new invention that is widely spread in the high-tech industry, that is able to alter the functioning and the experiences of humans by supercomputers. And these nerdy little creepy weirdos, some of them are big, crazy, they think it's hilariously funny to be able to beam people that are completely sane and responsible, and to alter what they see and how what their personality is. Now it's a computer-generated personality. She began to write about this in the Journal of Psychosocial Research. We found her articles in the Human Rights Watch and globalresearch.org, and she wrote a number of articles about it, and we've alerted a number of people in her profession to this, and they're not doing anything. Okay, but anyway, is that enough for you? Molecular electronics, it's nicknamed the God weapon. It's the complete control of the human by supercomputers, and it's with the force of a 50-ton Mack truck, and it's able to, you cannot feel it coming. There's nothing you can do about it. The only thing that can block you, save you from it, according to Ray Kurzweil, he explained on CNN's Glenn Beck program, he was explaining a little bit about virtual relationships. The only thing that can protect you is someone with a bigger version of it blocking you. And so this is the end of, and it's with the force of a 50-ton Mack truck. If you're beamed, It can make you pick up your hand and clobber yourself right in the jaw and knock your head off of your shoulders. The computer would have been planning it and planning it all out beforehand. Yes, it can beam buildings. It can take matter in buildings and recreate it so that it looks like it's explosive powders, and then it can actually explode the buildings. And only a more advanced version of the software could detect it. So yes, buildings can be made to be blown up. It has applications in war. It can make you can make your body suddenly have a disease. It can make it look as though you've been in as though someone has as though a bullet shot through you. It can make it look as though a bullet is what killed you. It's the supercomputers. These people that have it, they're obsessed. You know, the guys that have it, it's mostly the tech workers, and it's all just what they love to do. They do it in their playtime. This is fun for them to be able to invent different things to do with this, to come up with this technology where they can actually have your body be murdered by a supercomputer, but fool the police and the FBI and people with less advanced technology into thinking that it's actually a bullet. It can make the hole and the explosion exactly simulated as if it really happened, and then to burn your flesh and even create metal fragments. How? By taking parts of your body and recreating it with these nano-sized, beyond nano-sized little tiny particles so that it looks like it's pieces of metal. And because police and FBI really don't care, they really aren't motivated. When you hear our story, you'll understand. They have to be like all of us. They need the stick, not just the paycheck. Anyway, have I told you enough about it? This is what it's all about, everybody. And in other videos, I will explain some of the crimes that are being committed with it. But it's able to beam. The computer can beam anything, and can simulate anything. Footsteps on a carpet. So when the police go to solve crimes, and they're blaming these mothers for driving their children into the ocean or for murdering their children, it's the police who are criminally neglecting their duty to do something about crime as it advances into high-tech weapons. It's the FBI that are criminal neglect of their responsibilities. It's Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer, Jerry Brown, Lois Capps, who are criminally neglecting their responsibility to do something to ensure that our country stays on top of crime when they're informed about it. It's not I'm sure you'll find that the mothers are not actually committing these crimes. That it's actually someone beaming them with this and causing their bodies to do things that are really bad to their children, because this is that particular stalker's turn on. So now I'm getting into the crimes, which I'm not going to do in this video. So I hope I've given you enough information about the weapon, and that's really all I'm going to say in this particular video. So I think I'll end it, and you can send us your questions. I am always receiving more information about it. I'm always learning more about it. And so you can tell everybody it's a nanotechnology supercomputer weapon that has complete control over the living human. And it can be latched onto you for years. And little tiny things can be done to you. And yes, it can change documents. It can change the ink on documents so that everybody thinks that the medical records or the psychiatric records could be created so that where somebody, like some of these shooters, may not have ever had any psychiatric issues in their life. In fact, it was the computer that created documents in the files and rewrote everything so that it was his file with all these copious notes, because a lot of the stalkers are crazy. They do have mental problems, and they got a hold of this weapon from their friends, and they're giving access to it to each other. It's completely automated. You don't have to be good with computers to use it, and there are some really low-level weirdos who are using it to do really terrible things to people. And okay, so that's the technology. So send us your questions, and please do make sure that that you monitor my rescue. This would have been, what I've told you is worth many, 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 many millions of dollars. If I were free to do my work, I would have been writing it myself, but the stalkers prevented me from doing it. And so I've done all this work. It took me 5 years of research, working 115 hours per week from 2007 until not too long ago, to come up with all this information. It was nearly impossible, even for someone like myself, an honors graduate from a very difficult college, a double major. I was the top student in the nation the year I graduated in my science and technology major. It was nearly impossible for me to find out the things I've told you about this weapon. It's the hardest research I've ever had to do in my life. And on top of it being slowly murdered, by the weapon. And why was it so hard to find out about it? Because the high-tech industry is extremely secretive, and there's no one place or no one person for a mere citizen to go to for information about it. Even if you're being murdered by it, even if you've been kidnapped by it. So it took thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of hours of reading things and calling and writing to scientists, and so that's where we are with things. And so please do make sure I'm rescued. That's all I can say. And the other videos explain, the website explains what I need, how I need to be rescued. They need to update Social Security and instantly start sending me incredible Social Security. I would be earning well into the 6 figures per month, as my different peers, my associates can verify, and a former manager. I would be earning, instead of dying of starvation, I would be earning $500,000 a month and growing, and giving most of it away to inner city schools, but all the same, into the environment and wiping out poverty. I would be giving it away, but I would not be starving to death as these police and FBI and Jerry Brown, Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer, Lois Capps have allowed me to. My life has been destroyed due to their laziness, their immaturity, and their horrible, 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 horrible head in the wrong place. They're really, 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 really bad in their people. So please make sure that you stay on top of my rescue and monitor my rescue until I tell you all I'm rescued. And I will give you more information about the weapon as I get a hold of it, or as I am able to access it. Okay? But I have much more, so send questions if you have any more questions. Thank you so much. I better give you my. Here's the. And I'm sorry if it's a little bit, here's the website, helpsavebeverlyhillsprincess.com. And that means, so I'm just going to leave it at that. Okay, send your questions. Thank you. Bye-bye.